I'd like you to imagine your dream life. See the version of you who has what you want to have, feels how you want to feel, and is who you want to be. I'm Brittany Hoops, your hypnotherapist and manifestation coach, and this is the show where I'll teach you to master the full power of your mind, to guide you on your journey towards destination manifestation.
Take a step back for the ones who can't do that.
Hello, travelers. Look at us. We are out here. We are doing the thing. What we're doing is we're using our brains to manifest our dreams, aren't we? So if you are back for part 4 of our Neuroscientific Manifestation Series, that means that you've dedicated the past month, as of today, after this episode, towards aligning your mind with your manifestations. And I just want to say for that, do you hear the claps? Major kudos for you. So when everyone asks you how you manifested it, how you did it, you're going to know. You're going to know, and you're just going to point to that beautiful brain of yours, and you'll just say, hey, all the power, it's up here. I know how it works. So my next question for you then becomes, why do boring, normal goal setting when you could do neuroscientific manifestation, right? It's a whole lot more fun that way. You must agree, otherwise you wouldn't be here ready to uncover what we have in store today, right? Especially since we're going to dive into self-fulfilling prophecies, the expectancy theory, the Theta Brainwave State, and subconscious reprogramming, which if you're a longtime listener of the show, you will know that this is like my jam, right? All of this is my jam, but this is like my extra like jam. And we're also going to cover the power of intention, okay? So this is a lot to cover. Let's just go ahead and dive right in. So what is a self-fulfilling prophecy? No, it is not a Taylor Swift song. I do love that song. Was it on her latest album? Prophecy. What is it called? Something Prophecy. I love that song. No, self-fulfilling prophecies have nothing to do with Taylor Swift. But what does it have to do with manifestation? Well, a self-fulfilling prophecy occurs when a person's beliefs or their expectations start to influence their behavior, which you can imagine then starts to influence and impact their expected outcomes. So this is kind of a core tenet of the law of assumption. I believe I've talked about the law of assumption before. If I haven't, we'll certainly be talking about it more. The law of assumption comes from, at least where I've heard it in the context, is through an author named Neville Goddard. So if you're on like Manifestation Talk, Neville Goddard, for some reason, I don't know why he's so huge and not some other authors, but Neville Goddard's like really big on Manifestation Talk. So you've probably heard about him if you hang out in those edges of the internet. I've been studying manifestation for 17 years now, and I had actually never read any of his books. I knew a lot about him. I'd learned about him through programs, and I knew the law of assumption really well, but I'd never read it from the source. So recently I was like, you know what? I need to read me some Neville Goddard. So I would say over the past couple months, I've read like 10 of his books. They're like very short, so you can get through them pretty quickly. I also listen to audiobooks, so I kind of drink them up like water. I sort of rip through them, and I really love his books. They're really great. I will admit that they kind of all sound the same. If you've read one, you've read them all, right? He wrote them mainly, I believe, in the 1930s to the 1960s, so they're a little bit older. He teaches the law of assumption. He teaches the power of your feelings and your emotions. Feeling is the wish fulfilled, as he says. And he really teaches about your imagination. So that's basically it. Some of them, I will admit, some of his books, they get a little religious, which I'm like, and I kind of skipped over those parts. But the older books towards the end of his career, I would recommend those more. They're a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more what we think of and new thought and manifestation sort of work. So why I mention him in all of this is because the self-fulfilling prophecy that we're talking about today is the law of assumption. right? It's the law of assumption in action. So you assume something, it becomes your reality. You create it by your assumption. So if we know that, let's just assume that all our prayers are answered, okay? So when it comes to sort of the neuroscientific explanation of all this and how it works, the self-fulfilling prophecy, I think we've all sort of experienced it in some way, shape, or form, throughout our lives. It's kind of your brain's form of like, I told you so. It's your brain being a little brat. That's the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's your brain's way of ensuring that it is right. Because if the brain is right, you stay alive. That's been the evolutionary impact of that, right? It's when the brain is wrong that you've been in danger in some way. That's what signaled trouble. That's kind of, what signals trouble with all this, right? So I also like to think of the expectancy theory with this because it pairs really nicely with all of this that we're talking about. The expectancy theory suggests that we tend to act in ways that align with our expectations. Again, we make that self-fulfilling prophecy come true. So I kind of want you to imagine that you're wanting to manifest something. I doubt this is difficult for you to imagine considering that you're listening to the show right now. I know this to be true. And let's just say, for the sake of our example here, that maybe you got a new role at work. Okay. You got a new role at work, a promotion. You're really excited about it. Maybe it's a new job altogether and you want to do your best at that job. And so you're manifesting success in this new role, right? But the tricky thing is you don't believe that you're cut out for it. So you got these sneaky little beliefs that everyone around you is better than you. You aren't cut out for this new role. I'm speaking from experience here. The last job I had years ago before I became a hypnotherapist, I worked at Instagram, and oh my gosh, can I tell you, I met the smartest people like in the world, the most driven, the smartest people in the world at Instagram. And I was so used to being like a big fish in a small pond, like at my previous jobs. Like, I don't know. I always was really good at my work. And then here I went to Instagram and I just felt like, oh my gosh, everyone was so much more qualified than me, so much smarter than me. They all went to better schools than I did. I went to NYU and they went to Yale. They went to Harvard. They all had doctorates and master's degrees and all these things. And I felt so out of place, like I didn't belong. And so it can be, I'm offering this example because I know what this feels like, right? Also, I'm offering it because one of you guys DM'd me and this was an issue that you had been dealing with. So I like to try to cater our podcast episodes to things that are happening in your life so they really apply to you. Which is, by the way, DM me your manifestations. Like, if you listen to the show and you want some sort of like personalized advice, let me know what you're working on and I can always use those as examples. So let's just imagine that you were like me many years ago at Instagram, which, by the way, that ended up being I got over those beliefs and I ended up just realizing what was my strength. Like, okay, sure, maybe my resume wasn't the strongest thing, but I was really good at connecting with people and I was really good at making people laugh. I was really good at explaining things in an easy to understand way. All the skills that I use here for the show. And I just relied on that in that job because sure, there might be some doctors, ex-doctors or doctorates that work at this company, but they could not speak to the everyman. Like they would use their big words and it was actually getting in the way. It was not helping them in this role. And so I just leaned into my strengths and I really carved a place for myself. Like I was really proud of myself. It took months, but I was really proud of myself how I did in that job. Of course, then I decided, you know what? I don't want to do this. I want to go become a hypnotherapist. And I left it all, which is had its own set of limiting beliefs that came along with that. But thank goodness I did it. It felt like a win though, even though I was only there 6 months. It wasn't long. I really felt like, people were sad when I said I was leaving and I felt like I had done a good job while I was there, which was nice. But let's just imagine that you don't know the end of this story. You don't know that that's going to happen. You're brand new. You're overwhelmed with this new role and you have this expectation, right? And so since you have this expectation, You start taking extra long on your projects. You miss due dates. You stumble in this major meeting in front of the CEO. You make this big unforgivable mistake. I don't know. Luckily, none of those things happen to me, but maybe they start to happen that way. And what you know, because you didn't overcome those limiting beliefs, like I definitely know I had to do back in the time, you end up fumbling in the new role, right? And maybe you even get demoted, or maybe you even get fired. That's how important these limiting beliefs are if you let them fester, right? I was lucky enough at Instagram, I didn't let them fester, but if you let them fester and don't do anything about it, they could really lead to these behaviors that lead to these unwelcomed outcomes. And then your brain is going to be like, see, there's a reason why I told you you couldn't do it. I was right. See, and you're like, shut up, brain. But your brain, the funny thing is your brain wasn't actually right. You created that result because of the thought you were having, right? If you would have had a different thought, a different assumption, or a different expectation, kind of like in this example that I personally lived through, I was doubting at first, but then I shifted it. Then I said, oh, wait, what am I good at? How about let's stop trying to be the doctor, because I'm not the doctor. We'll let the doctor be the doctor. I'm not going to be that person. Who am I? What do I bring to the table? Why did I get this job in the first place? Oh, I'm a people person. Okay, so let's go be a people person, right? You got to shift that thought to something different, right? Because you only created that result because of your thought. So if you would have had a different thought, a different assumption, a different expectation, you would have created a different result. It's the age-old, the age-old chicken before the egg conundrum, right? Which one comes first, the thought or the result? The brain likes to think that the result, and then you had a thought about it, but really it's the thought that creates it all first. So, how does this work with your assumptions? How does this work with what you want to manifest? Well, if you expect or if you assume that you're going to be successful, and again, this expectation can be created with any number of the manifestation practices that we've covered over the last several episodes. It could be hypnotherapy. It could be affirmations, visualization. You could use vision boards. In fact, you wouldn't even have to use any of these. If you could just get yourself to just plain decide, that could be enough, right? You name it. When you expect that success with your manifestation, then your actions are going to align with those expectations. Now, we've talked all about what it means to be sort of a vibrational match to your desires. So this increases the likelihood that you'll manifest those positive results. So it's kind of like it's getting caught in this sort of amazing, miraculous sort of feedback loop. It's like the circular loop that you can't even really notice where it begins and where it ends. And when you're in it, it just reinforces the belief, not only in yourself, but also in the manifestation process in general. I look back to some of my favorite, biggest manifestations, like being on Big Brother, meeting my soulmate, building and moving into my dream home, past vacations, major vacations that I manifested. I look back at these things and I'm so thankful that I used manifestation processes and I used, my knowledge of manifestation for these things, because now I can it helps me manifest more, because now I'm like, oh, here's real life examples. Like I always say, your first manifestation is maybe the hardest because you don't have any evidence to prove that this works for you. Once you have evidence that proves to yourself that this works for you, then you become passionate about it. Then you want to study it and you want to do it more. You might even become a manifestation coach like I am, right? You get so enamored with it because you're like, wow, I just did that. I want to do that again. That was fun. And so it creates this sort of amazing, miraculous feedback loop, which then reinforces your belief in yourself and in the process in general. So the version of you who expects and assumes success is going to take vastly different actions than the version of you who doesn't. Right? The version of me who was so overwhelmed at Instagram and was like, oh, I don't know what to do. She just kind of held her head in her hands and looked for other people to tell her what to do. The version of me who decided, you know what, I'm going to lean into my strengths. I set up meetings. I met new people. I approached projects in the way that I would. I spoke up. I offered my ideas. Like, that's a very different version. Very different actions came out of those thoughts rather than the thoughts that were feeling overwhelming and like down on myself, right? So it's funny, I'll be working with clients sometimes and they'll say things like, gosh, I really don't think that this thing that I want to achieve is going to work out for me. I don't believe it. And I just can't figure out why I'm not taking actions towards my goals. Like, Brittany, help. And I'll be like, well, this is actually quite simple. I know why. No one wants to waste their time doing something that they think is going to turn out poorly. Like, no one wants to do that. That's your brain working. Your brain is working just fine when that happens. The problem is it's just working against you. It's working. It's just not working in your favor. And that's why you listen to podcasts like this. We want to get our brain on board. We want to learn the neuroscience behind it so that it can work for us, not against us. So this conundrum of I don't believe in my goal and therefore I'm not taking action on it, like, this is the source of so much procrastination and misalignment. Whenever I'm like self-coaching myself even, especially when it comes to like social media. I think I've talked about this before, but like I just did it the other day. I'm like, why does making this real feel so difficult? And I'll coach on it and I'll be like, okay, I have the thought it's not working. When I have the thought that it's not working, I feel frustrated. Like, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? It's not working. And when I'm frustrated, I hem and haw, I take a bunch of time, I drag my feet. You see how those negative thoughts lead to actions that don't lead to the results that you want. If I was feeling inspired and creative and excited about all this, then I would just work on it like boom, 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 boom. And so that's why procrastination is always a sign of misalignment with your thoughts. Your brain won't let your body take action until it believes that it's worth expending all that time and all those mental resources towards it. It's not going to let you be inefficient. It's not going to let you be gung-ho towards something that you think is absolutely not going to work out for you. It's going to say, okay, let's stay on the couch. Let's not work on this, right? And so the amazing thing is that the brain, due to these self-fulfilling prophecies and the expectancy theory, which is the neuroscientific explanation of the law of assumption, it will always ensure that you are right. Okay? What's that saying that we always hear all the time by Henry Ford? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Yeah. That's the expectancy theory at its finest, right? Mwah, chef's kiss. So, how can we train the brain to expect and to assume success instead, right? That's why you're here. Well, that's where our good old Theta Brainwave State comes into play. Ooh, this is my favorite part. Now, I would happen to imagine that over the past 40 some odd episodes of the show, I have broken down the different brainwave states before. In fact, I remember doing that plenty of times. But the Theta Brainwave State is my personal favorite because it is the brainwave state that we've all come to know as hypnosis, what you experience during hypnotherapy. In fact, it is hypnosis. All hypnotherapy, all it is helping to guide you into this brainwave state because it is so powerful, because there are so many uses of it. I've heard people hypnosis just has so many different words. It can be deep meditation. It can be hypnosis. It can be hypnotherapy. It can be theta healing. It can be, there's just I don't know. I can't imagine so many. It's all the same thing. It's all just trying to get into the theta brainwave state, right? It's kind of fun, here I was reading Neville Goddard. He doesn't say the word hypnosis throughout any of the books that I read, right? But he says again and again and again, he suggests visualizing that thing that you want. He wants you to visualize you having it right as you go to bed, right as you fall asleep. And, as I read that, I squeal and I'm so excited because I'm like, well, that's when we're experiencing the natural theta brainwave state. That's a time where you can capitalize on experiencing it naturally. So of course he would suggest while you're in between wakefulness and sleep to do this visualization because we know that that's when it's most effective. That's what hypnosis and hypnotherapy does. why I like hypnosis and why I like hypnotherapy is you don't have to wait, for this one time, maybe even 2 times a day where you might fall into this naturally. If you work with a hypnotherapist or you learn self-hypnosis, you can do this work whenever you please, right? And you can do it in a really deep way. And so your brain kind of goes into theta brainwave state when it's deeply relaxed. Like I mentioned, it already does this naturally several times a day. When you wake up, you're moving from delta, which is sleep, right, all the way up to beta, which is your waking consciousness, your waking conscious awareness. That's how you spend most of your day, right? And so as it moves up through there, it goes from delta to theta, which is hypnosis and deep relaxation. Then it goes to alpha, which is light meditation. And then it goes to beta, which is just being a conscious, aware, awake person. The same happens as you fall asleep at night, right? It goes from beta, and it might stay in beta for a little bit if like you're worrying and thinking all these thoughts. You ever have racing thoughts before you go to sleep at night? You can't get yourself to go to sleep. Well, that's because your brain's been stuck in the beta brainwave state. You need to relax. You need to let go of those thoughts. You need to move back into alpha and then into theta and then down into delta where you're in sleep, which is another reason why hypnosis and hypnotherapy is so beneficial for insomnia. It's one of the first things that might be recommended for insomnia because it's literally moving you down towards the brainwave state of sleep. We get you in theta. We then instruct you, hey, go to sleep in theta, and that moves you down to delta. And then you have a nice, night's sleep. So you can do this as you wake up in the morning, you're naturally in theta. As you fall asleep at night, you're naturally in theta. As good old Neville Goddard suggests, you do move through theta on your way back down to delta, which I mentioned is sleep. We also experience theta when we're driving, when we're daydreaming, when we're watching a movie, maybe even when you're absorbed in a really good book. And of course, also when you're doing hypnosis and some deep meditations. I know I've mentioned this before. It depends on kind of your, I don't want to say skill level, but just your ability to relax. Like how relaxed can you get? If you can relax very easily, then you might move into theta brainwave state more than somebody who's really uptight and doesn't relax very often. You might stay more in alpha. So also, kind of as a side note, when you do things like daydreaming, when you ruminate very deeply on all your worries, when you reminisce about old memories, when you're, sort of daydreaming and planning for the future, you are activating a collection of brain regions that are called the default mode network. So this default mode network is active during periods of rest and sort of quiet wakefulness. So we might associate this default mode network most when you're sort of lost in thought. And so I find this super interesting. Another sort of neuroscientific explanation here for hypnosis and hypnotherapy in the theta brainwave state. I find this really interesting because we utilize these regions of the brain during hypnotherapy when we access the subconscious mind. All of those are subconscious mind processes. So let's just say you're in the theta brainwave state. This brainwave state is unique because your brain is also in a heightened state of suggestibility here. Okay. And this is what I think we think of most when we think of hypnosis, especially the olden day hypnotists. Like, oh, a hypnotist can make you do anything. You'll just listen to them. And that's not really true. You're still in control, but you are more open to new ideas and suggestions, right? And so what that means is that your conscious mind is mostly offline, right? Or it just gets out of the way. It relaxes so much that it just gets out of the way, which then leaves your subconscious mind sort of open and receptive to a lot of changes. So I know I've given this example before, okay? But it is the best way that I can explain it, so I'm going to give it to you again. Repetition is key. We know this. How I like to think of it, this whole process, is the conscious mind is kind of like a goalie in a soccer game, okay? And so when you're in the theta brainwave state, that goalie has decided to leave his position here in front of the goal and has decided to go take a water break. Yep, he's going to go sit on the sidelines. He's getting out. He's getting off the field, which then allows you as the soccer player here to kick all those new thoughts straight into the goal of your subconscious mind. right? I like this example even more now because lately my husband and I have been watching Ted Lasso. We got a Apple Plus, right? Is that what's it called? Apple Plus? I don't know, whatever Apple streaming service is. We're giving that a go a little bit. And we've been watching Ted Lasso. And so I'm particularly fond of football right now. That's soccer. So I love this metaphor even more. But when you kick that goal of your new positive thought, you are doing so without all that pesky conscious mind chatter, right? Without the pesky conscious mind goalie blocking it, second guessing it, doubting it, or sort of getting in the way in any sort of way, right? And so this is essentially the metaphorical explanation about what happens when you do hypnotherapy. So we want to get into the Theta Brainwave State because it allows us to access the subconscious mind. And it allows that subconscious mind to be open. The subconscious mind is way more open and forgiving and assimilating. And it's a way better listener than the conscious mind can do. And so the subconscious mind is where all your long-held beliefs, your habits, and your behaviors reside. So if we can get in there, we can make some really long-lasting changes that affects how you automatically show up in the world. So that's all well and good, right? But what does it have to do with manifestation? Well, techniques like hypnotherapy, deep meditation, even just getting into a really relaxed position, right? That puts your brain in this sort of open, receptive theta brainwave state, which then makes it easier for you to access and reprogram limiting beliefs that may be blocking your manifestation efforts. So by embedding those new positive beliefs into your subconscious mind, right? By kicking those goals of those new positive beliefs into the goal, you align your deeper mind with your conscious desires. And that's why we do all this. That's why manifestation hypnotherapy exists, is to help you do this more deliberately, right? So let's take this example that we mentioned before with the expectancy theory. Okay. So let's say you're having trouble expecting success. In fact, you're expecting failure for yourself at work here. You didn't think you were cut out for this job, but kind of, I guess, how I kind of handled it in a way. Not that I'm always like the picture perfect way to handle things, but in this instance, I was very proud of myself. I did handle it. Instead of letting your brain sort of run wild with all those self-fulfilling prophecies, right? You decide you're going to do something about it. And you just so happen to listen to this fabulous podcast called Destination Manifestation. And you heard about this amazing thing called hypnotherapy, which, side note, it is actually kind of funny because it was when I worked at Instagram that I discovered hypnotherapy. That was kind of always like my fun little fact at like team meetings, is like, I'm a hypnotist, because that was when I had started my business, but it was just a side hustle. I hadn't built it up full time yet. So let's just imagine that you listened to this podcast, which didn't exist yet, but you knew about hypnotherapy and you learned that hypnotherapy could help you instill new beliefs at that subconscious level. So you decided to book a one-on-one hypnotherapy and coaching program. You showed up for your first session. You told your hypnotherapist all about how you wanted to feel more confident at work, how you wanted to believe that you made the right decision of taking this job, how they made the right decision by promoting you, right? Like you really wanted to believe this. In fact, you wanted to set yourself up for further promotions even, right? That's what makes hypnotherapy and coaching perhaps, an investment that's going to even pay for itself. You want to do a good job. And so your hypnotherapist guides you into that deep state of relaxation where your subconscious mind then just sort of blooms and opens up like a flower, right? It becomes so receptive to positive change. And I mean, honestly, I'm giving you this hypothetical situation here. There's so many different ways that a session like this could go. And that's what is kind of cool about one-on-one hypnotherapy, is that like no two clients are gonna have the same outcome, the same results. Like I have so many tools and techniques up my sleeve that we do some coaching on it. That helps me figure out what direction is going to help you the most. And there's so many different ways that a session like this could go, depending on how you're feeling, your background, whatever it might be, right? So we might decide to explore where this pattern of self-doubt originally came from so that you can heal it, you can reverse it, you can revise it. That's very helpful on the subconscious level. Your hypnotherapist, which obviously is me in this instance, might offer your subconscious mind new thoughts and new beliefs that reaffirm your confidence at work. You might instill new habits and behaviors that help you perform the way that you want to in your job. I kind of like to think of it like you're accessing the hard drive, right, of a computer. And so there's so many different things you could do with that hard drive, right? You could clean it up. You could add new programs. You could move things around. You can change things. You could eliminate things, delete them, whatever's going to help you. Although, let me just make this clear. We can't like delete any memories or anything. You know, it's not like eternal what is that? What is that movie? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. We're not doing anything like that, right? But we can change things. We can revise things. You'll always know that it was a certain way, but it just won't affect you that way anymore. That's what I kind of like to think of it. I always give the example of like, where, maybe the stove was turned on and it was really hot in your kitchen. We can turn off the stove. The stove is still there, but it's no longer hot to the touch. And that makes a big difference in terms of your pain level, right? And so that's kind of what we do at the subconscious level. We look and we see if there's any stoves that are turned on. There's anything that's hot to the touch. There's anything that's painful for you. We turn that off. It's still there, but it doesn't hurt you anymore. And that's kind of nice. Your subconscious mind doesn't have that pattern like it once did that was detrimental to you. So we can do whatever's going to help you here, right? At the subconscious level. And by doing this, it's all going to align with your manifestations, and all of it is going to be for your highest and greatest good. You decided what you wanted consciously, right? And then you reprogram those changes subconsciously. So that's kind of how it works. That's why personally, I like to incorporate both hypnotherapy and coaching into my sessions. At first, I was just a hypnotherapist, but I just found that I'm like, you know what? That's like having one tool. It's like having a saw, but not a hammer. And yet you're a construction worker. Like you need all the tools, right? And so that's why I like to incorporate hypnotherapy and coaching into every session. Coaching is for the conscious mind, where we really get clear on what you want. And then the hypnotherapy takes what you've consciously decided, this is the goal that I want. Here's what I want it to look like. And then we instill the patterns and the habits and the belief system at the subconscious level that's going to help you create what you consciously want. Does that make sense? And of course, I talk about the subconscious mind quite a bit, but I don't mean to sort of do the conscious mind any disservice. Obviously, the conscious mind is super important. We spend most of our everyday waking life in our conscious mind. The conscious mind is what we use to set our intentions. Now, setting an intention involves consciously directing your thoughts and your emotions towards a specific goal, like your manifestation, right? Intentions then activate parts of the brain related to your planning, related to your decision making, right? That's all using the prefrontal cortex part of your brain. And then the intentions help us generate sort of a sense of purpose and a sense of focus. I mean, we know how important directing your attention, directing your focus consciously is to manifesting your desires. You want to focus on the positive. You want to reframe your thoughts. You want to switch your thoughts. When you notice yourself going down the wrong path, you want to be able to bring yourself back. And that's all using the conscious mind to do that. So intention setting is probably going to be one of the first things that you do when you set out to manifest something. You probably have been doing it and you didn't even realize that you've been doing it. It's knowing and deciding what you want to create. So in manifestation, when you set clear intentions using your conscious mind, your brain then becomes more focused and more purposeful in its actions. So intentions help guide your attention, okay? Intentions help guide your attention. It helps guide your energy, and it helps guide your behaviors towards, achieving what you desire. That's why they're so important. So let's just break it down. Let's do a little recap here, right? Conscious mind, great for setting intentions, great for deciding what you want to manifest. Subconscious mind, great for uncovering those limiting beliefs, those automatic patterns and habits that are operating automatically underneath the surface, the things that you aren't consciously aware of and yet are still still infiltrating and directing what you think, what you feel, what you do. And if they're infiltrating those things, they're going to infiltrate what you manifest too. So in order to manifest, we need both conscious and subconscious mind to work together, to be in alignment, right? To both be moving in the same and right direction towards your creations. That's what it is, folks. That's what it boils down to. Whew. Right. It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Guys, there is so much more to cover with the brain, with neuroscientific manifestation. Like, even though we've done 4 episodes on it, I kind of feel like I'll spend the rest of my life teaching this stuff. And we've only really scratched the surface with this series. But I hope you have enjoyed it. I know I sure have, these past 4-part series here. We now know that manifestation techniques work by rewiring the brain's neural pathways, right? We learned that in part 1. We shift our perceptions through using the RAS, remember that, the reticular activating system, and by regulating our emotions to stay aligned to our desires. We know this now. So when you consistently practice those things like visualization, those things like affirmations, gratitude, and all the other manifestation tools that we've covered and will continue to cover, right? And when you do those, especially when you're in a deep state of relaxation, like during hypnotherapy, that's when you prime both your conscious and your subconscious mind to recognize, to become aware of, and act on those opportunities that align with your manifestations. That's why we do all this, right? They're fun too, but why we do all this is so that we can be in alignment. So the science and the psychology of manifestation does suggest that changing your thoughts and beliefs can lead to tangible changes in your behavior, which then, of course, ultimately influences your real world outcomes. That's why we do it. That is manifestation, scientific, plain and simple. I love it. I love it. It makes so much sense. Well, of course. That's how that works. And I love to know that our brain plays such a big part in it. So, if you have enjoyed this series, can you let me know? I would love to hear it. You know what? How about this? If you've learned something new over the past 4 episodes, okay, I want you to go ahead. I want you to leave a review for the podcast. You can do this on any podcast platform that you listen to. Apple, Spotify, whatever, even YouTube. Leave me a comment. Let me know that you've learned something and what you've learned. I'd be so interested to hear. I feel like it's been a while, at least on Apple. I haven't checked the other ones, but it's been a while on Apple since I got a new review. And I'm feeling it, guys. I need it. No, it's okay. I feel like I haven't honestly reminded you guys to leave them, so no worries. But I'd love to hear from you because sometimes, having a podcast, I'm just like talking at the camera. It'd be so nice to know that I see the download numbers. I know you're there. I know you're listening. I just would like to talk with you, right? I wish you could talk back. So, yeah, I just want to hear your feedback. I want to hear what you thought about it. We can always dive deeper into any area that you have any confusion about or that you have more questions about or anything. You just let me know, right? And now that you know how the brain works with manifestation, I hope that you'll start to employ some of these learnings that you've taken from these past couple episodes. But you may find as you're going about all this that there's more like specific areas that you kind of want to troubleshoot and really hone in on, right? Well, if that's the case, I got you covered too. Okay. So I have created a 60 plus. No, actually, let's update that. I've added to it recently, so now it's 65. Ooh. I've created a 65 plus manifestation resource toolkit. That means there are over 65 different tools in this toolkit, and it's completely free for you to download, okay? It's like this 25-page long Google Doc. And I will tell you, like I just did, I update it regularly, okay? So 65 is the least amount of things that they'll be on there, right? And what's kind of fun about them is that I've categorized all the resources there by issue or by problem that you may be facing on your manifestation journey. Because I've kind of realized working with hundreds of clients that kind of, there's sort of core issues that come up again and again and again. So if you find yourself overcome by fear, I have book suggestions that address just that. You find yourself procrastinating, I got you covered too. There's like, I can't even remember, maybe like 9 different core issues that I've noticed that come up a lot. Of course, you're more than welcome to explore any of the resources, but it is fun, sort of like it helps you narrow down where you should start first, right? So I kind of took all these resources, I've categorized them by these major manifestation blocks so that you can kind of just zoom in on just the resources that are going to best help you and go from there. So check out the link in my show notes. If you want to download that, I'm offering it completely for free. I really hope it helps your dreams come true. I know it certainly has helped my clients and it's helped mine. I update it so frequently because I'm in that document so frequently because it's that helpful. So I love creating things like this because my dream is for you to reach your dreams, right? That's what it is. Like, isn't that nice? Like, I feel so lucky that that's my dream because like, I feel like the more people I'm able to help, the more my dreams come true, the more your dreams come true. It just feels like a win-win. It's sort of this beautiful butterfly effect. And I will tell you, not a day goes by where I don't express my gratitude for this platform, for the show, for you guys, for your dreams, and just for this beautiful life that's just brought us all together. Like, what a time to be alive. I really hope that like reincarnation and all that is true and real. I know I believe in it. I really think our soul experiences so many different lifetimes. After reading A Journey of Souls, which I think I've talked about on the show before, I freaking love that book. It just really opened my eyes to so much. And I really do believe that we experience so many different lifetimes through so many different lenses, but it's our same soul that keeps reincarnating again and again. And I don't know how I'm going to top this one. Like, this one is just so good. Being Brittany Hoops, I love it. I love my job. I love getting to work with you guys. So thank you for that. All right. Sappy moment over. Thank you for listening to the Neuroscientific Manifestation Series. Go back and check out parts 1 through 3 if you haven't already. And next week, we're going to be back. We're going to be back to our typical episodes. They're going to be always focused on helping you realize your greatest and deepest desires, okay? So I will see you then.
I don't know.